r/ProRevenge. Posted by user Ufogel97. School expelled me for mom's anger. We sued the county and caused a reform. Not sure if this fits this sub, but felt like posting my story. I have no issue with removing it if it doesn't quite meet the standard. So I have a really bad leg, I've had 13 surgeries, long story, and had just started at a new school. After the first 3 weeks, I had to go in for another procedure on my leg. Not that big a deal to me, I've been here before. Upon my return, I had documentation of my restrictions, as well as special amenities that were required. The big three were, that I needed extra time to get from class to class, must have someone to escort me, and needed unrestricted access to the elevator. All of these got me recurring problems such as constant harassment by teachers and security about my being in the halls during class time, and why was my cousin out too? He was filling the role as my escort, as I have anxiety problems and we had the same classes. These first two were annoying, but easy enough to deal with. The real issue was the elevator, as I was told multiple times that for security issues I couldn't have a personal key, due to it sharing the same functionality with the interior door keys. I would never have had any issues with this, as I was told there would always be someone on the same floor as my classes, to open the elevator for me. This, of course, was untrue about 75% of the time. The lack of elevator access meant that I was always stuck in the halls, when other students were going class to class, and was consistently late due to having to wait for someone to come by and open the door for the elevator. This also meant that I would sometimes be stuck waiting through the entire lunch period, and due to my absences couldn't afford to simply go to lunch after the fact. After about 3 weeks of this, I was tired of not getting to eat lunch. So I did one of the stupidest things I could have attempted, and tried to use the stairs. For context, I was not on crutches, I was on a full-blown walker. About halfway down to the landing, I fell hard. As lunch was letting out, one of my friends found me, got someone to help pick me up, and carried me to the office. Another of my friends went to find my other cousin, the one who normally escorted me, wasn't there due to being sick, so I was without an escort because I couldn't bear the thought of, gasp, a stranger escorting me, who in getting to the office managed to get me to calm down enough to give them my mother's number. Now, my mother is quite hot-tempered, but can keep a level head normally. When she heard I fell, she was there in record time. When she got there, she immediately asked what happened. I told her I didn't want to miss lunch again, so I tried to use the stairs. Big mistake, as that set off a Zarbomba-sized explosive. She immediately turned around, and demanded for the principal and VP to get their asses in here ASAP. As soon as the principal and VP walked in, she started berating them in a fashion not suitable for most adults to hear, let alone kids. When the VP made an offhand remark about my condition, my mother was swarmed by local sheriffs, that provided security for the school's entrances and office as she physically went after the VP. We were escorted out, and after looking at the file and realizing my cousin and I had the same address, they figured out that I didn't actually live there. Now, my grandmother's address was listed, as she looked after me after I left school up until around 8 p.m. She also was raising my cousin after an issue between her and my aunt. They used this as grounds to expel me, and told her, I can be some other school's problem now. I was then enrolled at the school near my house, and had to have yet another surgery to repair the damage that was done as a result of my fall, and redo the work of the previous procedure. I had gotten multiple statements from teachers, as well as my doctors, and my parents were moving forward with a lawsuit naming the VP, principal, and the county school board. We were contacted by a lawyer who had won multiple cases against our school board, some of which went to the state Supreme Court, and he told us he would take our case pro bono. He was getting tired of going against the board, and thought a case like this would be what it took to try and fix their shit. Fast forward 9 months, and I was walking out of court with a settlement to cover all my procedures, as well as a written confirmation that the school would be going through a complete administrative overhaul, and that the principal and VP would be let go, and have their administrative credentials revoked in our state. My new school was let know day one my medical requirements and my need for a personal elevator key by the superintendent and the head of the State Board of Education. TLDR, school majorly fucked up with handling my medical requirements, resulting in a lawsuit that cost the head administrators their jobs, as well as a full-blown county-wide investigation of disability procedures. Posted by user, comcauliflower3135. Post office said I couldn't file a complaint about the mailman not trying to deliver my packages because I had no proof, so I got proof. For context, in my country, if your package gets sent through the National Post Service, you're basically screwed. It takes 200 years and they never actually deliver it. I don't know how it is in other countries, but here they are supposed to ring the doorbell if the package doesn't fit the mailbox, and if you don't answer they leave a notice and you have to go and pick it up all the way at the post office. The problem is that my mailman doesn't even try to deliver them, he just leaves the notice without even ringing the doorbell and leaves. I've had to pick up nearly every package I've ordered because of that. Well, the last time was my last straw. I was obviously home because of the pandemic. Suddenly I received a call that immediately hung up. It was so fast that my phone didn't even ring, just showed up as a missed call. No doorbell, nothing. I suspected it was the mailman and ran to the door only to find him inside the truck, looking straight at me before driving off. Well, I was pissed and called the post office to file a complaint. I explained the situation and the lady told me that I couldn't file a complaint, because they are only instructed to ring the doorbell, and calling is optional and I couldn't prove that he didn't ring it. At first, I just avoided using them again at all costs, but the other day I ordered something and chose a delivery company from the ones listed on the website. Apparently, that company hires the National Post Service to deliver for them here. When I found out, I basically stalked the tracking info for days. It was about 2 weeks late, until one day late at night it said it had arrived in my country, which usually means that the next day it's going to be delivered. The next day, I woke up at 7 a.m. to check. My suspicions were correct, it said, out for delivery. I quickly grabbed something to eat, got in my car and parked right outside my house. Then I waited, and waited, and waited, 6 hours in total, until I finally see the post truck pulling over. I grabbed my phone to record and watched as the mailman opened the door already, with the notice in hand, slid it inside my mailbox and turned around. I got out of the car and said, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" He didn't even look at me and said, "Just delivering packages, miss." Then I stood there as the hole grabbed his phone to call me and quickly hung up. I smiled as I took my phone out of my pocket and sarcastically stated, "Oh bummer, you didn't even give time to reach for the phone." He literally turned white, couldn't even speak. I continued, "Now can you give me my package please?" He quickly opened the truck, almost tripped and took out my package. "See, wasn't that easier than your whole scheme?" He finally manages to say, "Sorry miss." I turned around and left. He probably thought he got lucky I didn't say anything else, but little did he know that I sent the video to the post office via email attached to my complaint. Well, let's just say I have a new mailman. This one tries to leave 1 second after ringing the doorbell, but at least he rings. TLDR, mailman won't ring the doorbell or call and just leaves with my packages so that I have to pick them up at the post office. They said I couldn't file a complaint because I had no evidence, so I spent 6 hours parked outside my house just to record him leaving without even trying. Edit: for everyone commenting about paragraphs, I'm sorry, I wrote this on my phone and it kept deleting. This was my 5th time writing the whole text. Give me a break. Edit 2, okay, I just wanted to clarify some things. I didn't expect this to get so much attention, wow, or for everyone to have awful delivery experiences. 1. Everyone saying I should just install a camera, that would work, yes, but then he would leave with the package and I would have to go pick it up. I wanted my package that day. 2. For everyone saying I got him fired and that's not something to brag about. Firstly, as much as it isn't his fault and he's just following orders, he was not nice or professional. He literally saw me at the door one time and drove away while looking at me. Secondly, We don't even know if he was actually fired. I might be wrong, but I think here the regular mail carriers are considered public employees, which means they rarely get fired, just transferred to a different job. Posted by user, TexanNative71. Do shady thing, fire my boss, hide millions from your client? I don't think so. Forgive me if this is long. This happened a while ago, but it's still so fresh in my mind. I left college with a business degree in one hand and no job in the other. And like so many colleges, the promises of alumni willing to give jobs to graduates could not have been further from the truth. So I had to seek out my start from the bottom. I found a good job in operations at a company, I can't say who, without giving it away. Had a great boss, who taught me pretty much everything I needed to know. Work was great and the money was good. I need to explain how the business worked, so you can understand how the plan worked. The corporate office was in California and we were not. There are a lot of things that went on at this company, and I can't get into all of them, because it would just take away from the story, but let's just say they had a very Stratton Avant vibe when it came to sales. I started out work in operations with some of the smaller clients, but with some help from my boss, was able to climb the ladder rather quickly to the point of being overall the operations and order processing for the firm. We had a very large client, 90% of the company's business. The way it worked was, we had two sets of sales reps, TSRs and CSRs. TSRs were the heavy hitters who reached out to the other big businesses and tech firms to extend their warranties on a product. They made really good money. The CSRs were more of the mom and pop crowd and the inbound sales calls for those that wanted to extend their warranties. The reps were all given codes that associates the client's files with theirs, so if someone did a renewal automatically, they would get paid as it was their client. Pretty sweet gig. The client hired the firm to be the middleman for their B2B as they handled all of their everyday clients. For every $100 that came into our firm, 18% or $18 would be for the company, and the rest would be sent to the clients with the warranties activated. Most of the clients paid by CC or PO with a wire transfer, but there would also be a good amount of checks each week that would need to be processed. A little while after I started, the client check portion was now going to be overseen by one of the sales managers. Didn't really faze me because I was working on the smaller accounts. Since we were a publicly traded company, all the sales reps' orders had to go to operations to be fulfilled. They weren't allowed to process them on their own. This is when things started going downhill. My boss at the time was given temporary access to the financials, as they were hiring a new CFO and he had a background with it. We went to lunch like we had done plenty of times before, but he seemed different. When I asked him if something was wrong, he told me that something looked off with our biggest client for one of the accounts. He wanted to make sure before he said anything to the higher-ups. While this was going on, I had been offered the chance to be our new compliance officer, which means I would need to make sure everything was on the up and up. Soon after, I come in to find out that my boss was just terminated for a multitude of reasons, all of which had to be untrue, because he was a pretty well-liked guy with not just with the company but with our client as well. As I log into my terminal, I see that before he left, he had given me admin access to his files. Here's where things started to pop off. Remember those checks that clients were sending in to renew their warranties? Well, we were cashing them all right. Apparently, we just weren't adding those renewals to their products in the system. That would have triggered a payout to our client, who, as you remember, would be getting 82% of that money. Instead, they were cashing the checks, keeping the money, and using the interest in the accounts. Yes, in the mid-2000s banks actually paid interest, to cover losses in their collections department. It was wild to see that this was happening, and something had to be done. So I hatched a plan. First things first, secure a new job, 'cause it won't be a fun place to work after this. Done. My previous boss knew of other companies that would scoop me up. Put in my notice, and stated in my exit interview that I just couldn't be a part of what was happening, even though HR was in on this. I wanted it on the record. Next, get approval for overtime for all the operations crew to come in on a Saturday, and double pay them. They arrive early Saturday, obviously not too thrilled as to why they are there. But when I explain that if they complete the task, not only so they get their overtime, but they get nice bonuses, they were much happier. They spent the entire day, applying all of those checks dated back years to the client accounts. We are talking millions of dollars. When all the sales reps arrived Monday, they were shocked to hell. Not only did they meet their weekly goals before picking up the phones, they made their monthly and quarterly goals too. 2 weeks into the new quarter. Cheers. Partying. Yelling. Screaming, celebrating. Except for sales management. They went from being really excited, to skeptical, to confused, to, oh shit, in about 2 hours. They realized where it must have come from. Because not only did the company hit all these sales, since it had been over a day, the client came into work Monday to see a very nice payday in their system as well. And like anyone, would have questions, and says they are coming out to congratulate the team on such great numbers. So management starts scrambling because they can't figure out how this happened, and all under my boss's old login. On my last day I arrive and in the lobby. I've got my box too, for the last of my things, etc. A guy walks up as is waiting for the elevator with me and we strike up a conversation. He notices my box and jokes about getting fired, and I just tell him I had a great opportunity come up so I decided to leave. Before shit hits the fan, we laughed. Really nice down to earth guy. He realizes we are getting off on the same floor. He asks if I work for X, I say yes. He asks where, I tell him operations, and he reveals that he is the CEO of our client. We go our separate ways. Client shows up and there is a big party. Afterwards, the client says that they would love to get a breakdown of where most of the sales came from, so they can allocate more money to that department. Management says sure, but it made up a lie about how they can't share client payment info due to regulations, blah blah blah. Cue my exit from the company. 2 weeks go by and I get a phone call from a number I don't recognize, so I let it go to VM. When I get off work I checked it, to find out it was the CEO of the client where I used to work. He has had something come up and would like to talk to me. Of course, I'm nervous as hell, but I call him back, and he picks up on the first ring and we get to chatting for a bit and he finally just asks me, "Why did you leave?" I tell him I had a great opportunity come up. He doesn't buy it and says that apparently my comment about shit hitting the fan really stuck with him and he thinks something more is going on. So after a little more prodding from him, I tell him, just look at collections and that's all I can say. He thanks me and I hang up. 2 days later, he pulled the plug on the account. Apparently, my old company tried to threaten him with a lawsuit for pulling the account 3 years early. He replied with, "That's fine, because when I show the courts that I have the evidence that you committed fraud." Corporate came in and cleaned house. All of the management was fired within the day. 1 month later, my friends and I had a very memorable trip in Vegas, all courtesy of our old client. Edit, wow. Very surprised at all the responses and positive messages. Thank you all very much. Epilogue, best part, I guess this should have been part of the story. My old boss was an adopted kid, treated his adopted parents great, while their real kids didn't, and when they passed, they left him all their money. All of it. This was about 2008. He was in a weird place, because he loved his parents and was really close to them. He went to his church to pray for his parents and for what to do with this new landfall of money. He loved working, but didn't need to anymore. He left the church and went to a bar, because I mean, who doesn't? He sits next to a guy who, and this is almost out of a movie, is a developer, and has run out of money to finish his development because it's 2008, and no one is loaning money. They get to talking and he thinks, maybe this is a sign. I'll speed this up because I've got to run to work, but he invests in the guy's development by buying all the houses, dirt cheap at the time. Life sucks, because so many people do shitty things, and get away with it that it's great when good things happen to good people. If you like these stories, hit that like button, and leave a comment below. You can upvote these stories by pressing the links in the description. If you want to hear more stories from me, hit the subscribe button, and press the bell icon to be alerted when a new video is posted.